Hello and welcome back to Elevate. If you've ever wondered what a dame does in her free time, you don't need to wonder anymore. Today we have Professor Dame Heather McGregor, who started off as an investment banker, then moved on to build her own business and sell it, and then dedicated her life to education and community. So, welcome, Professor Dame Heather McGregor.
Thank you.
I've had the privilege of working with her for a couple of years. In those years, I've learned way more than I would have even 10 years working outside. So she's shaped my life instrumentally, and I really want other people to have the same experience that I had in the short 1 hour that we have with her. So thank you, Heather, for your time.
Really delighted to be here. Very proud of all of you, and absolutely thrilled to be here.
Thank you. Now, Aaron or Anas has an introduction.
Oh
Good
my
luck,
god,
guys.
my
That
heart
was-
is beating so fast. Okay, so I do have to agree that it was a privilege because, I mean, for him, he worked with you, but then for me, it was being able to see how you would lead and how you lead by heart and hustle. Hustle is an
Like that
important
hustle
word.
word,
Yep,
yes.
I do. Keep mentioning it in my graduation speech. But yes, she's the kind of leader where you want to do more and actually be more as well. Like she pushes you and makes you more ambitious, as she mentioned previously. So, and when we say she's the final boss, like she could actually run a country if needed. Honestly speaking, I think it's great that we have here. Sorry, I think it's great that we have her here. And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anaswara. It was a privilege to work with you as well.
No. Oh god. So for me, past 11 months working with you, it's like how to be a CEO masterclass in 11 months. That's literally what I tell everyone who asks me what was it working with her. Like 60 years of experience, 50 years of experience condensed down to 11 months. I feel like I would have never learned something like that so much in like 11 months. So my main thought process of doing something is like, what would Heather do in a particular scenario? And that's how I make decisions, whatever it is. So that skill that you taught me is like going to be there forever. And I'm so grateful to be able to work with you.
Oh, thank you. That's very touching. I have to say that I don't think what would Heather do will be very helpful to you when it comes to big decisions like how do you move a pile of stuff from Ras Al Khaimah to International City. Because Heather probably wouldn't be in that position in the first place. But I'm very, very touched for all of you. I mean, it's a privilege to have worked with all of you. Two of you have been my student presidents, which is a really important part. All of you have supported each other, though, and every time when I was working with all of you, you all had the support of the other, and that made a really big difference. I think that the best people to work with are the people who can then command other people and support other people. We never had any shortage of student labour with any of you. We never had any shortage of being able to get things done. When Anaswara wanted this kind of a freshers ball or this kind of a trip, she managed to get all the people around her to help and make sure that my office was notified of what she wanted as well. It's this kind of multiple stakeholder management that I think you all worked out really well. And stakeholder management is the most important thing in being able to get things done. I mean, other people call it other things, influencing skills. Okay. How do you get influencing skills? Actually, influencing skills are really just stakeholder management. Who is important? Who's going to make the decisions that are going to make your life easier or otherwise? And the smallest thing can make a difference. Even if you want to move things from Ras Al Khaimah to International City, if you can persuade someone to start for you at 6:30 in the morning or 7 in the morning, if rather than at 9 in the morning, your life is going to be easier.
Yeah.
And so how are you going to do that? And this is all interpersonal skills. This is all stakeholder management. So I hope that some of the stuff that you learned from me was all of that.
Yeah. So what would you say are some of the key skills that you acquired early on in your career? So you started off as an investment banker, then moved on to
Well, I
entrepreneurship.
didn't start as an investment banker,
Okay.
but actually I started in the world of marketing and advertising.
Okay.
And I realised that I wanted to be an investment banker pretty quickly, to be honest, because the company that I was working for, the first company I went to work for after I left university, was listed on the stock exchange, and so
Okay.
you could buy its shares.
Yeah.
And I realised there was a whole world out there of people buying and selling shares, and that people had opinions on what shares to buy and what to invest in, and people had an opinion on my company. They had an opinion about whether it was worth buying or selling shares in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I knew was my company had been founded by 3 people whose names were still in the title of the company,
Okay.
and they had listed the company on the stock exchange and made loads of money. And I was thinking, okay, this is something you can do. You can build a company and list it on the stock exchange and make piles of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very focused on having a successful career.
Okay.
And mainly for the reasons that I have shared with Anaswara, which is that I thought if I have a successful career of my own, I would have a much better choice of suitable husbands.
Yeah, I mean, fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see that.
If you make your own money, you haven't necessarily got to marry it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mhm.
So, what would you say are the key skills that you acquired early on
To be ambitious.
to be ambitious?
And to be ambitious and have a strong work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very ambitious, and also to work out how to get to where you're not going to happen overnight. You have to get somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, I worked in this company. It was an advertising agency. It was listed on the stock exchange. I then went and got a job working in a PR company that only worked in the capital markets, so that I got even closer to the dealings of the stock market. And then I worked out that if I really wanted to get actually into an investment bank, I had to do an MBA.
Mm-hmm.
So then I did an MBA while still in this job. So I did it at night and at the weekends and everything. And by that time, and in the middle of that MBA, I got married just before the MBA, and then in the middle of the MBA, I had a baby, which it was probably not ideal in terms of timing. So then I had a full-time job, a baby, a new husband. My new husband was playing cricket virtually every minute of the day. I mean, he was working 5 days a week, training 2 nights a week, playing league cricket on Saturday and cup cricket on Sunday, and I was trying to do an MBA. And when I tell people about this time of my life, I always say, don't try this at home. And, it really is, looking back on it, mad. But I finished my MBA and walked away from my job at the same time, and went and got a job in an investment bank. And so I got the thing that I had been working so very hard for. And that's the short version. The long version, of course, is that in 1992, which is the year that I graduated with my MBA. So first of all, I went to a really good school. I went to the top school in Europe, the London Business School.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I didn't leave it to chance to find a job. I worked out what I wanted to do, exactly what I wanted to do in an investment bank. There's lots of jobs. And then I worked out who could influence me getting an interview. And I thought, well, their clients would, and who are the clients of investment banks? Some of them are the big institutional asset managers of the world. Those are the same people that held the shares in my employer.
Okay.
So I went to our shareholders and said, who do you deal with? Which investment banks do you deal with? And they said A, B, and C. I said, will you write a letter to A, B, and C recommending me? And so I did. I'd made such good friends with, or built such good, I wouldn't say friends, I built such good relationships with our principal shareholders that when I wanted them to write in support of me, they did. They wrote in support of me. Now, none of this will come as any news to any of you, because all 3 of you have seen me in action supporting people to help them get jobs. And we also all know, and especially today, that any job application will be screened by AI before it even gets through. And what will make the big difference is somebody even telling you about the job vacancy. How did you find out about the job you've just started?
I found it through LinkedIn.
Right? And then you applied for it and didn't find anybody that you knew at the company?
I did. I
Yeah.
immediately messaged. I was like, please
You know,
recommend.
that is exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you need to do. Won't get you the job.
Yeah.
It might get you the interview.
Yes, it did. It
Yeah?
did. Yeah.
It won't get you the job. You will not get the job if you can't do the job. Okay? It's not about nepotism or preferential treatment
Yeah.
at the point of the job, because when people are hiring, it's a risk-weighted decision. If I hire you, how do I know that it's that it's going to work out, because actually it's very, very expensive to hire people and it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
You invest loads of time in training them and then they don't work out. This is really a waste of time, money, everything. So what can I do to reduce the risk that the person who I hire doesn't work out? First thing is talk to somebody I trust. If they trust this is social capital, by the way, everybody.
Yeah.
If they, so you message somebody in the company and said, I want to apply for this job.
Yeah.
And they will have said to somebody, oh, Anaswara is keen to apply for the job. You won't be the only person who is interviewed. Other people will be interviewed. But the fact that somebody could vouch for you will lower the risk. It's not that it carries favour, it lowers risk. So that's how I got my job in investment banking. And I applied for 4 jobs, got interviewed for 3, offered 2.
Okay.
It was fine. And then I did something that you absolutely understand. The job I was hired to do was to work with food manufacturing and food retailing companies and tobacco companies as well, people who made cigarettes. And I had to deal with those companies in the public markets and help to buy and sell their shares. Help people to buy and sell. Big institutional, not individual people.
Yeah.
Big institutional money. So every day we were trading hundreds of millions of dollars of shares in these companies, and so I had to be an expert on these companies, including an expert on all of the stuff that they used to do before, like over the last 20 years. Some of these people I was dealing with, some of these clients, had traded these shares for decades. And so they knew all about these companies. They knew they used to have different names, that they'd bought and sold things, they'd had different CEOs. They knew all of this. So I spent every weekend going into the office and reading all the files. There wasn't really the internet then. I couldn't sit and read annual reports and things. So I read historic annual reports back and back and back and back. And lots of notes and opinions and newspaper cuttings and things until I knew the history of these companies as well. So I just put in the hours, and I don't honestly think that there's a substitute for putting in the hours.
So I'm going a little bit off script. One more question that kind of came to me right now is, how do you build such good working relationships?
Try and help other people before they ask you for help.
So
if you can see another way, offer to drive them to their meeting. Yeah?
Okay.
If you can see a way of helping people, do it.
Was there any moment in your career where you're like, oh, I'm in the wrong room, I need to change direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember before I became an investment banker, and I was still sitting inside a company, and we doing a lot of deals. Okay, so we were buying other companies, and we were also listing on other stock markets around the world, and we had to raise money a lot. So my job in that, when I was still sitting inside a company, was to raise money, and that's why I knew so many bankers and investors. And so I remember sitting in a room, and we had to work very late at night on a deal, and I was the only woman in the room, and people went around the table going, okay, we're obviously going to be here till midnight, let's get some pizza. And so they went around the table, right, do you want a margarita, do you want a pepperoni pizza, all this kind of thing. And then they got to me, and they said, oh, Heather, are you okay? Do you need to go home? Who's getting Rowan's dinner? I was like, okay, we're not having this.
Oh my God.
We're not having this. So I took my wedding ring off, and as you can see, I don't wear it anymore. And I just sort of thought, I'm not having this, I'm either here and I'm part of the team, or I'm meant to be at home cooking for Rowan. Rowan, fortunately, never ever got used to me cooking, and anyway, my cooking is okay, but it's nothing to honestly splash about. So I don't think he was ever missing me at home. I know, actually, when I met my husband and I went to visit his apartment for the first time, he owned literally one knife, one fork, one spoon, one plate, and then on the fridge, stuck to the fridge, you've got to remember this is pre-internet, stuck to the fridge was the ripped out list of takeaway shops attached to the fridge by a magnet with all of their telephone numbers down the side. So that was obviously what was going on before. So I don't think he was, had expectations of culinary heights.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Okay. So for the young people today, how can they tell the difference between giving up and moving forward?
I think it is important to know when to give up. You can't always pursue some of the things that you want, and moving forward is it's important to keep moving. I don't know if you've ever looked at the physiology, for instance, of sharks, but a shark swimming in the ocean cannot stop. They can't stop and hang around. If they're not moving through the water, they're not getting oxygen into their gills, and then they can't actually breathe. So they're in perpetual motion. And I think it's better to be moving forward. But sometimes I think people mix up moving forward with stepping out. So there is a very good book called The Squiggly Career. And in fact, there also is a podcast like this on which I have appeared. And the idea is that if you think you're not moving forward, then you move sideways to basically, but it's not a sideways move. Most people think that if you are going to earn the same money or you're going to be at the same level, that is a sideways move, and that's not a progress. But actually, you've all talked already in your introduction about how much you learnt from me, and the thing about it is that you, you, for instance, were student president 2 years in a row, and the first year wasn't with me, but you chose to run for election for a second year, presumably because you thought you would learn even more than you did in the first year, but that wasn't progress. You were still the student president. You hadn't moved forward. It wasn't like the senior student president. You were. I think it was on the same money, apart from the cost of living rise. What was progressing about that? But you felt that there was some progress to be made by remaining in the same job, and that is true of stepping out. So I decided when I wanted to be an investment banker that I was prepared to go back and be a quite junior investment banker. I had a big job in the company I was in, and I was very influential. I raised all the new money for the company. I dealt with all the bank loans. I went back to being at the bottom of the heap, sitting doing the filing and getting people's coffee. But I was learning heaps, and I was getting into another place. Your generation are going to work until you're the other side of 70 years old. You probably can't even imagine what that would be like now. And I think if someone had told me that I was going to work to the other side of 70, I would have been horrified. Okay, but I'm 63 now, and it's clear that I am going to work to the other side of 70. And if you're going to work that many years, you need, probably on more than one occasion, to move sideways in order to move forwards.
Awesome.
One of the biggest pieces of advice I would give to anybody who wants to be an investment banker like I was, and many people do want to do that. And I, by the way, I was an investment banker for nearly a decade with the same bank, but they moved me all over the world. They sent me to Hong Kong for 2 years. They sent me to Singapore for 2 years. They sent me to Tokyo for 2 years, and in between they sent me back and forward to the UK. And before I was an investment banker, I went and lived and worked in Australia for a while. So I have worked all over the world. But I would say these days there's so much competition for investment banks that the most sensible, strategic way to get into an investment bank is not to go and do investment banking. So has anybody occurred to you that Goldman Sachs have an HR department? They have an events department, a very big events department actually. They have a marketing department. They have a finance department. If the most sensible for anyone who's even semi-mathematically trained, go and join Goldman Sachs's finance department. That's where they actually report their financial results. You know, they're not dealing with clients, they're just making Goldman Sachs work. And get your ACCA qualification, do that, build good relationships. The next time there's a junior analyst role come up, you'll see it and you can apply for it. And honestly, they probably even have a housekeeping department if necessary. go and work there. If you really want to work at Goldman Sachs, for goodness sake, don't stack the odds against yourself by applying for the thing that 20,000 people will apply for and where AI will absolutely have to screen. Okay, think of some other routes in, because as you have seen, because you were sitting here as student president, you got the job, you got the chance to work for me. Because you were sitting here, you got the chance to work for me. The opportunities to build relationships and and move forward are much greater when you're inside a company than on the outside of a company. So just get in that company.
Yeah, true.
So that would be your strategy on how to get a job.
Yeah, how to get a job in an investment bank or in anywhere actually.
Yeah.
If you really, really want to work for, I don't know, what's your dream company to work for? McKinsey?
Yes.
Right, okay. Right. If you wanna
I'm
work
sorry, Kabir. My partner.
well, one day, if you want to work for McKinsey one day, McKinsey take people at all sorts of levels. You either become an absolute specialist in the thing that they want to and become famous in your own right for something that they're very interested in.
Yeah.
Or if you are starting out and you wanted to work for McKinsey, find another route into McKinsey.
Yeah.
They have a marketing department, an events department, a finance team, an HR team, a premises team,
Yeah.
IT. I mean, honestly, every company has any company of size has all of these things. Do you know the one absolutely brilliant way into every big company is to go and do internal audit? So what is internal audit? All companies manage risk, every single company. The university, everybody manages risk. And the one way to manage risk is to basically do internal audit where you send a team in to a department and you say, right, tell me how this department works. What are the processes in it? Well, how give me an example. And then you basically take some examples. You say, right, give me 20 examples of, I don't know, if you're auditing, for instance, a department in the university that admits students and enrolls them, give me 20 examples of students that you have enrolled over the last week. And then you look through the paperwork to see, are you recording things accurately? Are you making sure that the offer you made to the student matches the offer address? You basically check the process.
Yeah.
And that's how you manage risk.
Yeah.
You manage risk that there's something going on there, that maybe someone's taking cash to admit a very bad student, or, which doesn't happen here but does happen in other places.
Yeah.
By going in and shining a light on that, and that internal audit is practiced in every single company over about 250 people, and it's how to risk manage. And the great thing about internal audit, most people up to a certain size will outsource that function. And Heriot-Watt outsources that function. We outsource that function to a middle of the range firm of accountants in the UK. But in big companies like McKinsey, or Goldman Sachs, in these companies, internal audit is a department. And so what do we know about internal audit? It goes around the whole place looking at everybody's processes. So anybody working in internal audit will know how the whole company works. And will be able to say, you know what, I've audited this, and I really like that. I'm going to go back to that department and say, can I have a job there?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where from even policies and procedures, like as consultants, we write policies and procedures for different functions. We do the same process. So we sit and interview everyone, get to know what they do, and then we write procedures and policies based on that and our past experience.
That's right. So an internal auditor will do exactly the same thing, other than they won't write the policy. They will just make the recommendations for what the policy should include.
Yeah.
And there will be management recommendations at the end of every internal audit report, which the management then have to come back and explain to the Audit and Risk Committee if they haven't adopted them, why not?
Yeah.
That's why people recruit into internal audit. I mean, why do nobody... these jobs, instead of getting 20,000 to 1, are probably 4 to 1. Why don't you push at the door with least resistance in terms of getting into a famous company?
This has been super valuable so far. I'm just very excited.
So one thing that I've learned from you is you keep on learning. So when new AI comes out, you spend so many hours during the weekend to learn about new AI. And I think that's really important. Not a lot of people do that. How important is it to keep learning? And that's
It's really, really important to keep learning for 2 reasons. One is that you can't not be current. I mean, despite learning about AI, I feel that I am not very current. I was talking to my middle son today, and instead of spending the morning at his weekend computer gaming, he'd spent the morning working with AI into to set up a fake investment management company, and he'd got the whole thing populated with a chief investment officer and a treasurer and this and this and this using AI, and then he'd started them having board meetings, and he'd created and managed this entire company on AI. That he also wasn't allowing access to the internet yet, so they were all this fake company was all talking to itself. And he was so proud of himself for this, and I thought, my goodness me, that's one way to spend your Sunday morning. And I really thought, actually, I've got to keep learning because everybody else is, and I can't afford to be left behind. The second thing I find very important is keep current as well as keep learning. So I teach a class every Wednesday that you're all very familiar with, called the Provost Business Briefing, that starts at 5:00. And at that class, I always recommend 3 business stories that I think people should know and should stay on top of. And how do people stay on top? It's very difficult because, if you're on a diet of TikTok and so forth, you're not reading the Financial Times, you're not and there's no filter on the internet in terms of social media, so no one actually knows whether it's true or not. The only way to know that is to read absolutely, or not only, but to make sure that part of your reading diet is properly accredited news sources. And so I also learn by reading the Financial Times and the Economist. And that way I can go into, so why did Modi reduce VAT in India? Okay, so why has he? I mean, it's no doubt there's 1,000 theories on TikTok about this, but they've chosen Diwali, and obviously it's Diwali. We're recording this on the eve of Diwali, and he has chosen Diwali maybe as a symbol, is to very strongly Hindu government to chose it as a symbol. But what has been the effect of it is to drive purchases of cars in India through the roof over the last 2 weeks, and it's partly a balancing effect against the US sanctions, trade sanctions, which are hurting India. And why are the US imposing trade sanctions? Because India are buying oil from Russia. How am I going to know all of this if I don't keep learning? You know, but it's making people are making real decisions based on some of this about car purchases or whatever. And the second thing to know about car purchasing in India and anywhere else is it's mostly done by women.
Oh.
No, that's very counterintuitive. But if you're an Indian family, there's a lot of consultation that goes on before a car is chosen. Okay, and the wife's opinion is very seriously taken.
Yes.
That is true.
Okay.
And so women actually influence 70% of all car purchases, and probably in India even more.
True.
So
I can vouch.
And so how do I know that? Because I've read a lot of stuff about how consumer purchases are made and so on and so on. These are all really, you might start from Trump sanctions. I mean, if somebody talks to me about Trump sanctions, I glaze over because it's like so far away from me. But actually, you come back down to how much people are spending on cars in India. That has a real impact on whether or not they can send their child abroad for education. It's very important. Reading, as I said, I would recommend that everybody read the Financial Times and the Economist. And you don't have to read it all every week. Just there's a system that sends you a daily cut of the big stories. So just look at that. One email a day.
So, Heather, you said this one quote to me, which is, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." This was during my time during presidency, and it was when I was going through something intense, right? And when she said that, I was like, okay, there is more to this. Why? Because I realized it's not about how you do things, it's about how you rise through challenges when things come at you. So how do you stay calm and confident during when challenges are thrown at you?
I think first of all I try and analyse very hard what is the actually material fact here.
Okay.
So I had I've had very bad staff situation where I had a staff member who was accused of a pile of things, and I had to think, what is material here? You know, is it that the staff member may or may not have behaved badly in their domestic life? Is that my issue or not? What was my issue? I might be outraged by that, by the way. I might be absolutely outraged that the staff member has behaved badly in their private life.
Yeah.
But if I, but that's not a material issue for the university. What is the material issue? No.
Yeah.
So the material issue might be that if the outrageous behaviour then reaches the newspapers, because then that becomes a matter of reputation for the university, and that's a risk that I have to manage.
Yeah.
Okay? So therefore, what do I do to manage that risk? Okay, now that is a material risk. So I have to work out how am I going to deal with this. It depends where the material risk is. So I apply a risk-weighted lens to absolutely everything. What is the real risk here? Is it that is it that this person who's behaved outrageously in their private life ends up in some mess? That's really not my problem. My problem is going to be if the university is affected by this in any way, shape or form. And so I need to make a decision based on the risk to the university rather than how I personally feel about it. So let's set aside my personal feelings and make a decision about the university and what's in the university's best interests.
Okay.
And also, do I have any evidence, for instance, that the university might be at risk in this situation? Do I know whether this is a rumour or not? I mean, So actually, the other thing is, what is the truth of the situation? Do I have an unbiased view? I also, as well as my job at the university, I sit on the board of a big US company. And we have a whistleblowing line, like all big companies. All these companies we've been talking about, McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, they all have whistleblowing lines where people who have accusations to make ring up those whistleblowing lines and say, XYZ is having an inappropriate relationship with another member of staff or whatever. What do? You get it investigated and make sure, and not by you either. And have an objective assessment of the situation. What is the risk to the company? What do you do, etc., etc. So I think it's about when something really tough happens, always examine yourself. How much of it is how I personally feel about this? How upset and angry am I? Versus what is the real challenge here? What is the business challenge?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I absolutely love something you've said as well, which is you either lead by love or fear. So what do you mean by that?
Well, it's more not about leading by love or fear. It's more about, do you lead by popularity or by fear? And it sounds terrible because to lead by fear, there's right now in the UK, there's been a very high example of a university that has financially failed. A very, very, very big university, much bigger than us. In Scotland, that has failed, and there's been an investigation into why it failed, and people said that there was an atmosphere of fear there, and people didn't speak up, and so because people didn't speak up, some of the things that were wrong didn't come to light, and then the net result was the whole university ended in financial disaster. Okay. So you don't want to have a climate of fear. That's how they describe this, a climate of fear. But it's more, I think, and by the way, all these quotes I give you, you're only ever as happy as your least happy child. The fact that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. None of these are original. All right, none of them.
Okay.
You need to value the things. If you don't measure the things that you value, you will only ever value the things that you measure. Okay. So if you only measure money, you'll only value money. If you start to measure how many times people help each other, and call it out, people will start helping each other.
Yeah.
Okay? So please measure the things that you want to value. Otherwise, people will only value the things that you measure. And going back to the leadership by popularity, I think leadership is not a popularity competition. That's the real quote. So I think leadership, and by the way, parenting. is not a popularity competition either.
Okay.
So leadership and parenting are not popularity competitions. And the reason why I don't think that you can lead by popularity is that you just simply can't make everybody happy all the time. It's just an impossibility. And if you try that, you will fail. It is just absolutely impossible. And just like if you've got 3 children and they're playing in 3 different sports fixtures on the same day in 3 different places, you know, you can only get to one of those matches. Is it better to get to a third of everybody's football match or to see one whole football match once every 3 weeks? You know, but you're going to make people unhappy whatever decision you make.
Yeah.
I don't think you can lead by popularity. I don't think it's possible. In which case, then, you have to lead, I wouldn't say by fear, but I think by fear of disappointing you. So what I would say is I try and lead by raising the level of expectation and the level of ambition. And if people don't meet that expectation, then yes, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed in them.
Yeah.
And I would hope that it's not fear of repercussion, but fear of disappointing me that would encourage people onwards.
I was really priming you to say that because that is my favorite thing about working with you or working for you is I was never scared of Heather. Like I was not scared what you would do to me, but I was scared I would let you down. And for me, that was something I never wanted to happen. So I would constantly like work on the thing.
Do you think you ever let me down?
There have been moments where like I feel like the work wasn't up to par.
Okay.
But that was
So you now a year later, when you've been out in the world working in the commercial world for a year, do you think that everything you gave me was to the right standard?
Oh, I think everything was horrible. I cannot believe how you let things slide through. But in a way, I also learned, like, I wouldn't have learned that on my own, no matter how hard I tried. And I had a safe space to learn those things. And I'm
But it
able...
didn't feel very safe at the time, though.
It didn't feel very safe at the time. But now when I'm outside in the real world, I realize I see my colleagues make those mistakes. And I'm like, oh, I would have never put an exclamation on an email. And that's something I learned from you, right? Don't put an exclamation.
No
like,
exclamation mark.
I'm a very happy person. So I'm like, hello, exclamation. But Heather was like, no. Do not write. Do not put an exclamation. Do not send emojis as well.
No emojis.
I've stopped sending emojis to everyone.
Inappropriate adjectives.
Yes.
And what I find is, honestly, people come out of a business degree and they can't write a business email. Why is that? What do we not? But you see, at university, I don't think we should be teaching people how to write an email. In my view, that's a practical business skill. A university is about academic endeavour and understanding the theories, like the theories of different leadership, for instance, and things like that, to help you become better managers. It's not teaching you very many practical things. I'm horrified at how many people don't know the oil price.
Do you guys know the oil price?
Anybody want to guess at the OPEC oil price this week?
60.
Very close. It's 62.
Oh.
I am, but it has been It was 70 all the way through September. And what this 62 is it's a peace dividend. It's it's because of the ceasefire in Gaza. Okay? The more disruption that people think is going on here, the higher the oil price goes.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
I don't know what's so. Come on, I know I'm not meant to be doing the interviewing. You've probably still got piles of questions. But Aaron, when was there a point when you thought you had disappointed me?
Oh, a lot. Many.
Well, give an example.
I think for me, especially the last month was horrible because it's like, your time is coming to an end. Your motivation to work just goes down. You're excited for what's next. And I've made so many mistakes. And you called me out on multiple times as well. You're like, what happened to you? I was like, it's the last 2 weeks. I'm out of it. So last 2 weeks were, I think, pretty horrible. Then here and there, I also make a lot of mistakes in terms of writing, which I've corrected here and there. And your attention to detail, like you spot the small mistakes here and there. Yeah, so I think a lot. But I've also learned from it. So
do you think you write better business emails after working for me?
100%.
Right.
100%.
Are you writing any business emails now in your new job?
At this point, nothing much, but I hopefully that'll come to use anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anaswara, how are your emails going?
Well, it's going. I'll just leave it at
Week
that.
1 of your new job, yes. Well,
Yeah.
no exclamation marks.
No. I heard that when you were like scolding him. I was there in the meeting room. And I started laughing because it was too funny. He was so sad. He was like, "Oh man!" I put the exclamation mark, and it was
No
too
exclamation
funny.
marks. and no
Emojis.
no inappropriate adjectives.
And emojis.
Emojis.
No
Emojis,
emojis.
yes.
Yeah. Do you remember what you did with the emojis?
Yes, I put it up in a classroom.
Yeah, she put it up in the classroom, and the poll was, "Is this something you should send your manager?"
Oh my god!
Yeah. And I was the teaching assistant in the class. I was watching the poll, going, "No, no, 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 no." I saw it increasing, and my heart sinking. Yeah, it was a
Yes,
thing. Yeah,
I did. I took your inappropriate email, put it up in front of a class, and asked them if they thought this was something suitable to send their line manager. Sorry, I interrupted all of you. Were you going next?
Yes. So you've built a reputation before the personal branding was even a thing. So you have your columns, books, Mrs. Moneypenny. What was your philosophy back then in terms of personal branding?
So I think you have to decide, everybody has to decide what they want their personal branding to be and absolutely stick to it. You can't have things that go off message. I mean, I learned this very early on in the days of social media as well, but I was before this. I mean, even to the point where social media was just, you know, I launched my Twitter account in 2009. Okay, so so what was that? 16 years ago. I used to work when I had my own business, I was a headhunter. What that actually meant was that firms would come to me who didn't want to advertise jobs. Lots and lots of big jobs are never advertised. And they go to people like I used to be, and they say to me, "This is what we want," and then you basically go and find them. So it's like being a private detective. And these days, of course, it's much helped by LinkedIn. But they also want I can't emphasize enough that when somebody hires you, they want to de-risk the hire.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that companies I work for regularly did was ask me to conduct sweeps of people's social media. And so I would, we obviously didn't do that as a firm. It wasn't a service that we provided, but we had a supplier that did. And they literally swept Facebook, Twitter, all the things. I mean, this is going back 10, 15 years, so there wasn't as much around as it was. They used to be a site called Friends Reunited, all of this stuff. They literally went to find everything they could, and this still happens today.
What's like a big red flag that you find on someone's social media that will not make you hire them at all?
Any kind of again, it's about risk. So what is any kind of inappropriate sexual, drug related, alcohol related stuff, anything that shows an appetite for risk, a personal risk, that, and some of it might be very youthful. You know, people might be and you'd be amazed at how much of your social media imprint is left even when you think you've wiped it. And the general view is that you shouldn't put anything out there unless you're prepared to let everybody see it forever. And so if you want to portray yourself as your personal branding as someone, I want to portray myself as someone who's very interested in women's careers, okay, who's very interested in helping in people in employment related matters. So I want to be somebody who people would come to for job advice or interview advice. I want to make sure I comment on this. So what are you commenting on social media? Do you comment on everything? Or should you comment only on things related to things that you want to be personally known for? If you want to be known as someone who's in the fashion industry or then try and comment a lot on fashion. You should be commenting on the Met Ball. You should be commenting on the latest Ambani wedding. You should be commenting on these things, and decide what it is you want to get famous for, and what do you want your personal brand to be about. And if you want it to be about saving the ocean or rehoming stray cats in Dubai or whatever, then decide on that and then make it consistent. Because then people will recognise that and recognise that anything you put out there will be. So I, for instance, was asked to speak a lot, to write lots of articles. I only chose to do the ones that I felt would support my personal branding, and I had it as a focus. What do I want to be famous for? So if you, instead of thinking about personal branding, which sounds quite sophisticated, just think, what do I want to be known for? When people talk about me, what do I want them to associate me with? And then make sure that you actually follow a strategy of that. So for instance, even about volunteering. So I do I did, and I still do, a lot of volunteering and giving. And these days, giving money to charity. These days, it's easier to give money than time. But there was a time when I had no money, and what I had to give was time. But what I did was, I only volunteered. I didn't, you'd never found me volunteering for a breast cancer charity. Of course, I feel absolutely passionately about breast cancer. I have had friends who've died from it. I've got friends who've got it now. But it wasn't in line with my personal branding. So I don't mind giving money to breast cancer charity now and again, but when I gave my time, it was only to charities that work with people that had job problems or helping people get jobs or people that hadn't. I started off volunteering in a charity that only helped people that hadn't had a job for at least 2 years. And they were struggling to get back because they'd had maybe been an alcoholic, or they'd had a drug problem, or they'd been left homeless, or there were usually some underlying problem to try and solve before you actually got them a job.
Yeah.
But I worked, and then the second job thing I did was work with a charity that helped people from school to get work, because it's this really difficult thing is, how do you get experience without a job, but how do you get a job without experience, and so on. So I tried to work with a charity that broke that cycle as well. And then, as you know, I also set up my own, when I was a successful businesswoman of my own and an entrepreneur, I set up my own charity in the UK, because what I was seeing was that black and minority ethnic, which in the UK usually means first or second generation Indian subcontinent, by which I mean India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, were struggling to get jobs. I don't mean the strong middle class element. I mean people who are first generation immigrants who tend to all live together in the UK in one place and only ever meet each other, and then they've never ever hear about jobs outside. And so I set up my own charity to help those people. I mean, the term minority ethnic means nothing in Dubai, but in the UK, 15% of the population are minority ethnic, working population are minority ethnic, but only 5% of the best jobs. Now, why is that? And so they're all working at the checkout in supermarkets and things. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen, that those people got the equivalent chance. But all of this stuff is job related and career related, and so and women related, or people with disadvantage related. And so I built a brand for myself by making deliberate choices about my time.
Okay. So for graduates today, how can they build visibility without actually falling into self-promotion or performative?
Nothing wrong with self-promotion, Answara. No, nothing wrong with self-promotion. Building a personal brand, some of that is about, you've got to be your own marketing director.
Yeah.
Right. But sometimes, I mean, there's like a thin line, right? Don't you think?
Where people that are full of themselves.
Yeah. So
I mean, I do get accused of that, of having, of having too much self-confidence. And
you live up to it, but not everyone can, right? Like,
I'm 63 now, so I sort of a bit over it. But I had this problem. I had this problem at 23 and 33 and so on. And my husband said I've got more front than Harrods, by which he means that I've got too much self-confidence to go to a room. But there is the reverse of this, which particularly women are very bad at, which is not taking credit for the things that they do well. So you can't always take credit for everything. Otherwise it's like me, I did this. And you've got to learn, as we all know, when you go to university, one of the hardest things is about group work, isn't it? So in group work at university, either one person does all the work and other people get half the mark.
So you know this.
Isn't this true? Yeah.
It is.
And
I've heard too many.
Yes, exactly. You've all had experience of this, and you all had experience of it at your master's degree as well. And unfortunately, the reason that we get you to work in groups and to see how inequitable it is because that is what it is like in real life. Okay, that is what it is like in real life. Is that you will be in a group of people at work, and somebody will do all the work potentially, and you cannot complain or say it was all me. And this person didn't do anything, and so on. But what you do have to do is where it's relevant, you do need to claim your own ownership. Otherwise, people will assume that you had nothing to do with it and then not give you the credit. So it's a very difficult balancing act. Yeah. Very difficult. What I would say is it's important to document things. When when projects, I imagine at the end of every project you all do, there's some kind of project assessment.
Close out, yes.
Close up.
Yeah.
And you've got to make sure that in that your contribution is acknowledged because it will form part of a promotion package in the future, a promotion case.
Yeah.
If you don't write it down,
Yeah.
or if you don't use your annual appraisal to deal with it, it will disappear. And
Yeah,
so
that's true.
you know, I'm not saying you should put your hand up immediately, but at the appropriate points, which might be the end of project wash up, it might be your annual appraisal, you need to say, right, I'd like to have the following 6 things taken into consideration because I think I did a disproportionate amount of the work and I would like to be recognized for that, you know.
And from an outsider point of view as well, like I watched you self-promote, right? But I think it builds a lot of trust. So for example, there were like things that you've been working on, and me as a self-obsessed employee, I don't really know what's happening. But the moment you remind us that you, for example, did a salary benchmarking, I didn't know that. And I wouldn't have known that unless you said you did that. And that gives a very positive view of my leader or someone I'm looking up to, right? So I think that's why it's also equally as important to say the things that you've done.
Yeah, and actually as a leader as well, you know, the one of the things I did recently, actually, I'm sure Aaron was part of this, was I as you know, I invite open questions in all my staff meetings, which are anonymous. So we went back through all of the anonymous questions for 3 years and worked out, you know, ranging from why are there not more forks in the kitchen, you know, to can we have the flight allowances rebased.
Yeah.
And we worked out all of the questions that had come and what had happened. And then I went into the next staff meeting with a whole list of, you said this is what we did. And, you know, you can either say that that's self-promotion or you can say that that's just reinforcing people's memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
That's good. Yeah.
That's actually nice.
Now, can I also give you all a big interview tip?
Yes.
Yes.
Say you like short things from this podcast to put out, but at the end of every job interview, there is usually a point where people say, are there any questions you'd like to ask us? Yes. Did you have an opportunity like that at any of your interviews?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity like that at any of your interviews at the end of the interview?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you've gone to work for your family. So
Me and interviews don't go well together.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, you interviewed dreadfully for my job.
Yes. Absolutely disastrous.
But everybody. But you see, that's another thing about interviewing inside is that when you interviewed not so very well, people also could look back at your previous contribution and say your previous contribution counted for you. That's why it's worth getting into a company first before moving, because your previous contributions will always be counted.
Yeah.
Whereas if you'd come from outside and interviewed like that, that would have been the end of it.
100%. Yeah.
At the end of any interview, it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are, if you get the chance to ask a question, the question you want to ask is this: may I ask, what do you think the risk is of hiring me? And then if they're honest in their approach to that, they'll have to stop and think, because you haven't worked here before, because you've worked where you are for 9 years and you might not be able to move, because you've never ever had any people management experience or something like this. You know, they will come up with some reason why it's a risk hiring you. And then you get the chance to address that risk in the interview. So if they say, you've never managed anybody before, you can say, yes. In a formal way, that's true. But I was the captain of the Heriot-Watt soccer team for 2 years, and I had to manage everybody on the pitch, the budget of the football club, who got picked for away matches, how to deal with people that were ill and who I substituted them with. So I've had loads of people management experience. It's just not evident on my CV because I haven't had it in a formal employment sense.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you an example of how to address risk. But if you ask that question, what's the risk of hiring me? It gives you an extra opportunity.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and that is advice you gave me when I went for my interview as well. I didn't ask the same question, but it was, is there any doubts that you have that I haven't clarified?
That is the same question.
Yeah, and that's what I asked. And then they did say, oh, you've never done management consulting before. I was like, oh, but I have solved these problems before. So I have the problem thinking mindset or attitude. So it has really served me well in life.
You know,
Okay.
it allows you to reduce their risk. Remember that hiring you is a risk. How do you mitigate that risk? How do you help them to get comfortable with the fact that actually it's not as much of a risk
Yeah.
as they might think?
Yeah.
And then you've given me advice on imposter syndrome as well. A lot of young professionals, I think, early on in their careers, go through imposter syndrome where they don't really feel like they're an expert, or at least I don't feel like I'm an expert. But people rely on you to be an expert very early on in your career. How would you deal, or how would you advise someone who's going through that?
Yes, you're never usually an expert on anything, but you are quite often the relative expert. And I think the thing that you have to think is, oh my goodness me, I'm not an expert on this. But am I more of an expert that everybody else is in the room? And that's the thing to think about. So
Okay.
I'll give you a very good example about how I became expert on things pretty quickly when I needed to be. So when I joined the company that I wanted to buy, when I quit banking to be an entrepreneur, what I did was join the company. I went to try and buy a company. I didn't want to start one. I went to try and buy it, and they said, "How do you know you'll be any good at this? Why don't you come and work here first?" So for 2 years, I worked in the company. I did construct a call option over 20% of the shares right from day one. So right from day one, when I started work, I already had the right to buy 20% of the company within 2 years. So
Yeah.
it was a clear path to acquisition.
Yeah.
But they had the sensible suggestion was that maybe go and work there to see whether I could actually do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And they, as I said, they were executive search people, and they specialised in communications. But one of the things they had very little experience in was a job called investor relations, which is the job that's inside a company dealing with people on the outside. Okay, inside a listed company. If you are a company whose shares can be traded openly, then you will have somebody responsible for investor relations.
Yep.
And I wrote down the top 100 companies by size in the UK that you could trade shares in. And then I found out the names of all their investor relations people. And then I rang them all up or emailed them and asked them if I could have a cup of coffee with them. And, you know, I managed to set up like 20 coffees out of 100, but, you know, 20 coffees over a month. So the first person I went to, I just asked them all about themselves. What do you do all day? Who do you report to? What takes up your time? What are the challenges of your job, etc. You know, and they were all very, very willing to share that. And then I went to see the second person, and I went to see the third person, went to see the fourth person. And what happens is, over time, the amount of extra information you get goes down with every coffee, because by the time you get to coffee 5 or coffee 6, you've heard most of the things before, because they're the same things as everybody else. And maybe you get a bit of extra information at the end that's because they're in a particular kind of company, like a telecom company or a financial services company. But honestly, by person 4, they were saying to me, well, what do persons 1 to 3 say? And suddenly I realised I was an expert. And then
Yeah, got it.
by the time I got to person 10, I was the country's expert. Right. And by the time I got to person 20, I had something I could publish. And then people started coming to me and saying,
Yeah.
can you help me find a head of investor relations? And do you think they should report to the finance director or the communications director or the general counsel?
Yeah.
And I was able to go back and say, well, in these companies, this is what they do, and in these companies, this is what they do.
Yeah.
And I only had 20 data points, but those 20 data points, I was better than the other people in the room.
Yeah. So what I take from that is you need to put in the reps. Like you
I'm
need
afraid
to
you
put in the repetitions. You need to
do.
keep doing the thing, and then you become
You need to put in the hours.
the hours.
Yeah. And then if you are challenged on it and you think, well, how come I'm being asked this? And I don't know that much. I've only met 20 people. Just think to yourself, I've only met 20 people in this game, but the other people around the table might not have met 2. So are you a relative expert? In which case, stop feeling like an imposter.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question. What if you are the youngest in the room and people don't take you seriously? How do you go by it? What do you have to do to be taken seriously?
So people are not ageist on the whole; they're energist, and they are. First of all, make sure that when you contribute something, contribute it backed by data. Okay. So if you want to make a point with data when you're young. Okay. I've got the other end of it. we've been working on this deal to extend Heriot-Watt in Saudi Arabia. We've been working with a big public company, and I was traumatized to find that the CEO of this public company was 45, which that's nearly 20 years younger than me. I could be his mum. And I am traumatized about it to this day. I feel so old. But what I find is he takes me seriously, despite being old enough to be his mum, because I know my stuff and I've got a lot of energy. So he believes I will do what I say and that I've got experience and energy. When you're young, it's back to, do you know your stuff? So if you want to make a point in a meeting, try and make the point with data. So I don't know, for instance, do I want to take anything that you might say about Saudi Arabia into consideration in a meeting? If you speak up and say, look, the average age, 70% of the population is under the age of 30. This is probably a very good place to start a university. And of those, the unemployment rate is X, and Heriot-Watt has got, which is very high. The unemployment rate in Saudi is quite high, and Heriot-Watt has an unbelievable track record of getting people into jobs. So it looks like a very good fit. But if you could bring in some data points in there, so the average age, the unemployment rate, the fact that Heriot-Watt came first in the UK graduate survey last year for getting jobs in Scotland and second in the UK. These are data points, and people will realise that you've listened, you've watched, and you've read, and you've put the hours in to becoming an expert, and then they will pay attention. So try and pick 3 or 4 data points.
Okay.
So now moving into our Women in Business series, the whole segment is
How
about
are we going?
women.
Are we nearly at the end of
We're
this?
nearly at the end.
Okay.
What have you learned from leading in male-dominated spaces?
Work hard. I've been in male-dominated spaces all my life, and I've never found it an issue, to be honest. When I do remember when I was posted to Japan, I was 7 months pregnant with baby number 3, and I was sent to be the deputy to somebody who was running the bank in Japan, and he was horrified. I mean, to be sent a woman who didn't speak any Japanese, who was 7 months pregnant with her 3rd child, I mean, he just looked at me in horror. Absolute horror. And he said, well, what can you actually do? And you're probably going to have to cut this next bit. So I said something pretty lame, like, I've got an MBA. Okay. And he said, yeah, I've got an MBA. He said, I'm married but available. And I thought, I mean, this is going to go very badly. Okay.
Yeah, we probably have to cut that.
Definitely. Absolutely have to take that out. Okay. But it is in my book. It is in my book called Survival in the City. Yeah. But I definitely think for this market, please.
Yes.
But let's go back to, I was sent to Japan, 7 months pregnant. I was all absolutely horrified about this, particularly my boss, who was American and had no experience of having a woman as his deputy at all, let alone one that was pregnant. He was just a bit baffled about what was I going to do. So what I did was I made myself very, very useful. I basically sorted out stuff right from the beginning, and I put the hours in. And he then realised that his life was becoming easier and easier. And instead of taking 1 day off a week to play golf, he started taking 2. And it's a true story. And I did notice his office was extremely empty, apart from a set of golf clubs. And once he realised that I was very effective at running the place, he was, much more relaxed. So I think being in a male-dominated world is, unfortunately, and it might be my generational thing, I think I just had to make sure I was not just as good as the men in the room, I had to be a little bit better. Now that's very unfortunate, and it's not something that I hope will persist, and I hope in Anna Zwara's generation it won't be necessary. But but I had to be just a bit better than everybody else in the room, and in order to do that, I had to probably work longer hours.
So, my question is, do you think women lead differently, and how is that difference powerful?
I do think women lead differently. They, on the whole, of course, it's a sweeping statement. It's a bit like saying all Indians try and save money. You know, it is a sweeping statement, but the literature tells us that women lead differently, that they are more inclusive because they are better at stakeholder management. So, you know, the big McKinsey study actually talking about the fact that men are raised to perform and women are raised to please. Now, that's a tremendous sweeping generalization, but women are conditioned to please and men are conditioned to perform. And this is how much of it is nurture and how much of it is nature. I don't think anybody can quite say. But on the whole, men are better at taking risks. Women have a much more balanced approach to risk. And on the whole, women are more inclusive and men are more likely to say, right, we're doing this and on we go. You know, I'm probably slightly counterintuitive because I think I take a bit more risk than most people, and I think that I'm a bit more decisive. But you know, women are very, very good at stakeholder management. I have to say, I have a female deputy now. I mean, I previously had a male deputy, and he was extremely good, and I did wonder whether I would ever get anybody as good. But now I have a female deputy, and why is she so good? She really is amazing. She's worked at Heriot-Watt 32 years, and in 32 years she's made some unbelievably good relationships, and she's just great at working those relationships and getting things done using all of those relationships. So I think that women go out and build those stakeholder relationships and also are very measured about risk taking. That's why.
Okay. So for young women who's actually stepping into leadership, what advice would you give them?
I would absolutely say that so what is leadership? Leadership is the management of people or resources. It's when someone is asking you to make decisions. When you're leading, you're making decisions that you alone are making, that or recommending or whatever you alone are doing. You know, when you're not. So when are you not leading? You're not leading when everything you do you're told to do. Okay, so there's stages of leadership. The first is leading yourself. The second thing is leading others, and the third is leading organisations. And I think we are all therefore in a position of leadership from day one because we have to lead ourselves. All these things we've been talking about, building your own brand profile, putting in the hours at the beginning of a job, these are about leading yourself. And my advice to you is learn how to lead yourself and then learn how to lead others. And then if you do both of those things well, you will eventually lead an organisation.
Okay.
So I'm moving on to our second to last segment, Heather. It is, do you speak Gen Z? So we'll throw a couple of Gen Z statements at you.
I bet you I do not speak Gen Z.
You do lead a university, so it's good to understand your customer, right?
Oh. Ooh, okay.
I almost said I definitely don't. Do you want to try me?
So do you know what Riz is, Heather?
Liz?
Riz. R-I-Z-Z.
Riz.
Rit. No, I absolutely don't. Do tell me.
Aaron.
RIS is a short form for charisma. So someone
Right.
who's extremely
Okay.
charismatic.
So if somebody has Riz,
Yeah.
they have charisma.
So
Yeah.
Aaron has a lot of Riz,
Yeah.
which is why he gets the ladies.
Yeah. No.
Aaron is a very thoughtful and considered person.
Aww. Do you know what a situationship is?
When you're in a situation, I imagine. Go on.
So it's not a relationship, but you're not single. So you're in a situationship. You're
This
in
is
the
when
middle.
Right.
Yes.
Is this the same thing as being non-exclusive? Because it seems to me that there's a decision to be made at some point about whether you go exclusive.
Yes, maybe.
In a
Yeah, kind
way,
of,
but
kind
not
of.
exactly. It's just that there aren't any titles involved. That's what situationship would be, because I've heard like there's like exclusive.
I don't have any
situationships
experience.
too.
I don't know either.
Neither do I. Pause. I don't.
So a situationship is not a relationship,
Yes.
but
Yes.
there is something special between
Something's happeing.
Mm.
We don't know what.
It's basically
can
a
depend.
relationship.
It can depend on a variety
you. Would people,
of factors.
on the whole, say it about themselves or other people?
Other people.
Other
They-
people.
Oh,
it's an
okay.
embarrassing thing to admit. I think.
Right?
Right?
Wait,
I think no
what?
one would proudly be say I'm in a situationship. I think
But you
There-
might say
there-
it of
there
somebody
are.
else.
yes.
Yes.
That's very helpful.
That's
Thank
a
you.
good observation.
I'm learning a lot. Go on. What else might I learn?
Do you know what Delulu means?
No, absolutely not.
So delulu is basically delusion and being delusional and
Yes.
saying there's a phrase called delulu is the sululu, which means being delusional is the solution.
So basically, you're just better at imagining things are better than they are.
Yeah, I mean you could do that, and you're just going to be very optimistic about everything, and you're just gonna hopefully kill it at
Right.
what you're doing.
So this is like if someone hasn't worked for their exams and they're just they're completely delusional about the fact that they're going to sail through their exams.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
That person's being Delulu.
Yeah.
If something is called, if someone says this pod is fire, what do you think that means?
Again, I have absolutely no idea.
I think you should put the tone in.
Yeah.
Oh, this is fire.
Okay. So this is very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
those are
okay,
close enough.
yeah.
It's good, so it's excellent. It's
really
good quality.
good.
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any?
I don't speak this language. She's the expert at this
Okay.
Gen Z language.
Okay.
So
Just because of my younger sister, I learned like new words, like the Gen Alpha terms, and I do not want to be.
These things are making their way into the Oxford Dictionary. Did you know that?
Yes,
I did
yes,
read about it.
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's very important. So, but I'm managing to live without them so far. And give me a Generation Alpha term then.
Alpha. Sorry. There's something called sigma. Sigma is basically like alpha
So,
vibes.
no, I think
Yes,
it's like
yeah.
the peak masculine human beings.
Okay,
They're
so
known as
it's not
Sigma.
just big
So
masculine.
they're
I think
even
it's a- I think it's a
Come on.
they're
thing.
beyond Alpha.
Yeah, they're beyond
Yeah.
alpha. Yeah,
Beyond
I think,
alpha.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
sounds very Andrew Tate.
Yes, basically, yeah.
Right, okay.
Heather,
Exactly.
what do you think about Andrew Tate?
I think that everybody in the world needs an opinion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think everybody's entitled to an opinion.
Mhm.
He has his opinions.
Mm,
They don't chime very much with me.
yes. Right. All right. This is not funny, but I just wanted to know what are your thoughts on quiet quitting? Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do know what quiet quitting is, and don't tell me that's a Generation Alpha phrase.
Yeah.
It's basically, and we saw a lot of this in the pandemic, of course. It's basically people who just gave up. They just either gave up literally and left their job and just stopped without much fanfare or whatever. But usually it's they're at work and they're at work and they are not making any effort whatsoever, and they're just turning up to work every day and going home again. And this is because so why would this be? Because they don't enjoy their work, they don't see any point to it. I do remember my youngest son saying to me at the age of 15, what's the point? I remember it was a bit younger even. What's the point of going what's the point of going to school? You just go to school to get exams, to go to university to get exams, to go to work where you get 20 days holiday a year. I mean, what's the whole point? I can't see any point. So I think that when you get quiet quitting, it's because people can't see the point of their work
Yeah.
and the impact of their work. And so I think we have, as leaders, we have a responsibility to make people see the impact of their work.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
is
you
fair.
answered
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
extremely well.
There's
Thank
one
you.
last
I didn't realise it was an
question.
exam.
One last question before we close it. What legacy would you like to leave behind?
It's interesting, this thing of legacy, actually. I think that the legacy, when I pass on or whatever, I imagine hopefully I live for so long that no one's around at that point to remember anything I've done. So I imagine there will be no legacy. But my legacy isn't just my own children and my grandchild that I hope will go through life better prepared for it than I was. But also my students. And, the three of you are all great examples. You'll all be my legacy. And so will the 5,200 students that are enrolled this semester. Where I can, I seek out individual students, as you all know. I'm the personal supervisor to a small number of students, many of whom you all know. And I try and make sure their life ends up in a different place than it would have done if I hadn't been involved. And I like to think that there's a whole lot of people, ranging from people who've done our MBA in a refugee camp in the Lebanon, all the way through to people who are doing qualifications with us in the future in Saudi Arabia whose life will end differently because of something that I did. And in many cases, I won't even know them.
Yeah.
So, like I said at the start of this pod, this is the woman who's instrumentally shaped my life. As you can see,
Our
Our lives.
you guys have your own turns to do your introductions, or
Oh.
what's the opposite of introduction?
Closure.
Closure,
Yeah, closing.
closing, whatever, right? Thank you, Heather. This has really, really meant a lot to me. I've been reminded of the last 2 years. Some of the big things.
And you got to dress up.
Yes, yes, I did. I'm dressing up for the Dame. I can't.
Dressing up for
I
the Dame.
cannot.
Well, the Dame
I
dressed up
cannot.
a bit for you, but I could have been. I'm clutching a Louis Vuitton handbag, but I could have made more of an effort and turned up as if it. But it's Sunday. You lot record
Yeah.
on the weekend always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, it's the opposite. You're dressing up for Elevate.
Oh.
We are dressing up for you.
That is
Oh,
correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
actually, you all look amazing, and I'm so proud of all of you.
Thank you.
Honestly, I would love to be able to have this relationship with all 5,200 of my students. In the absence of being able to do so, I hope that you three are going to always be ambassadors for me, and to also think about what is the impact you're having on other people's lives. Try and help other people before you need them to help you.
Yeah. And that's something I've learned. You put a lot into your network. Even like just having a project assistant isn't really a requirement, but you do that as you do that to train someone. For
It's
me,
a
that
ca-
is.
it's what the correct word is capacity building.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm technically a baby boomer, only by the skin of my teeth, but I was at the very, very end.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk our language, it's capacity building.
Yes. Thank you for capacity building.
I hope I'm capacity building for the UAE too. You three are all working and contributing to the economy of the UAE, all three of you. And that's such an important thing to do. We're all being guests in this country.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is a country where 90% of the population are guests. We're all guests here. It's an honour to me to give something back. It's a country that's treated us all very well,
Yeah.
and I think we are all giving back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a really important thing. We need to capacity build for the country too.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. What about this quick fire question round?
That was the.
That
The
was
Gen Z
it.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I thought you were gonna. When I did this on TV here, it was very much so. You know, are you a morning person or an evening person?
Oh,
are
okay.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope you got what you wanted out of that.
Yes.
That we did.
Yep.
Are we done?
Is there anything you wanted to say, or?
I miss
Okay.
all of you.
Yeah. Well, that's. Thank you for watching, everyone.
Like, share, subscribe, comment, and you know
Yeah,
what
I think
to
we're
do.
gonna cut way before that.
And
Thank
apply for my project assistant.
I don't think we can put that on.
Yeah.